Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie. It's later in the afternoon. I'm going to give you an update tour of my garden. It's now mid-June and the lilies are blooming, the lavender is in full bloom. It's absolutely gorgeous. So let's go and kind of see what my yard looks like now. So here, the back of my house, which I have some edible plants. It's kind of hard to see because it's dark, but we do have my jujube tree and my service berries. I did do a service berry plant of the week video that I'll link up above. And my jujube tree is in bloom. And it has beautiful flowers. They're actually really quite small. And you can see if we can get close enough and have it focus in. You can see the little fruit starting to form. But jujube flowers smell like honeysuckle, and you can actually smell it up at the top of my deck. Absolutely gorgeous. Can't wait for all the fruit we're going to get this fall. So there's my jujubes and my honeysuckle. I also have some gooseberries down here. They are not fruiting very well, and I'm wondering if they're just in too much shade. You know, gooseberries are supposed to be able to tolerate shade, but they have not fruited well this year. I've lost almost all of the fruit on my pluots. We've showed you that in other garden tours. My apples and pears are starting to grow beautifully. Look at that. It's getting big. This is my September Wonder Fuji apple. It's starting to get big. I also have a Jonah Gold over here. The fruit on this one is starting to look really good. Now, I'll link a video above on why I have these organza bags over them. It's basically to protect this tree from the apple maggots. Now my hydrangeas are starting to recover. It's been a very cold spring. We had some late freezes. And my hydrangeas, I thought I'd lost them. They're starting to come back in, but they're very chlorotic. They're just really not happy. But as you can see inside there, we are still going to have flowers. We'll just see how this goes. And there are the nasty earwigs. We've had so many earwigs this year. A little bit later this week, I'm going to show you how I've protected my cucumbers from earwigs. Here's the rest of my hydrangeas. They're just heavily chlorotic. I'm hoping next year they do better. This next spring, I'm going to put down the proper iron and see if we can get these to come out of it. We also have a new currant that's put on a huge amount of new growth. It's 1 year old. Actually, I planted it last fall. And we've got just a little currant that's starting to get ready. I think they have to turn black. But those cute little birds that I showed you, my cute little robins, I did have an almost black berry on this. And I think they got eaten by my robin babies. The lamium is doing really well. This is what the Jack Frost Brunera looks like without the flowers. We've got forget-me-not flowers that came in really late and didn't even flower this year. Brand new little Japanese forest grass. I love those so much. Hopefully they'll get bigger. I had these planted, I have one on each side of my currant. And I used to have these when I had dogs. I planted them like 3 times, but they were my dog's favorite plant to eat. They would come in here and just chew them down to nubs. But since my dogs are gone, I do miss my dogs, but since they're gone, I'm hoping that these will get a chance to grow. Got the hostas. Not too much damage on the hostas this year, and it's great. I absolutely love my moonshine yarrow. I did a plant of the week video on that I'll link above. And the garden is just really going strong. We had our first harvest of strawberries, and we're getting ready for a second harvest. Raspberries are still coming on. We've got several ripe ones in here. I love those. I did a video on why my garlic is flat. It's called lodging, and not a lot of people do it for garlic, but I've had great success with it, and I'll link that video above. The dill are huge, getting ready to be harvested. The onions are putting on good size. Look at that. There's one over here it was a survivor from last year, and it's gotten huge. These should be ready to harvest in a few weeks. We've got some banana peppers growing. Now, I have not grown banana peppers before, so I need to kind of read up on when they're ready to harvest. But they're looking good. They survived the initial onslaught of earwigs, which the earwigs really tried to eat everything I had here. They've been horrible this year. There's a few little plants that are still struggling. You know, they're not going to get any bigger, but you know, that's what the earwigs have done. And look what we've got here. Look what we've got here. These are my sun sugar tomatoes, and we're going to have tomatoes this year. I'm so excited. Now, if I'm looking for advice on artichokes, everybody's posting all these beautiful videos and pictures of their artichoke harvest, and this is all mine is done. It just sits there. I'm not sure exactly why it has not produced any flowers. This one is 2 years old, and that one is 1 year old. Neither one of them produced anything. We have my cilantro that's getting ready to harvest. The seeds are called coriander, and the seeds are actually starting to form. I will harvest those, and I use those in a meat rub. They are really good. Grapes are getting big. We're going to have an excellent harvest of grapes this year. This is Swenson Red. I have 5 different varieties. That one down there is a Himrod, and that's a green grape and one of the earliest ones to ripen. But this year, because of the problems we've had with the weather, I usually have grapes in June, but those look like they're going to be going into July. Then we have a little brand new Concord, and we've got some grapes coming in on that too. The kohlrabi I've been harvesting, and it's been delicious. They're huge, but they're not woody. They're really good. We've got some paprika peppers down here. You can see that they're coming in. We've got another one over here, but the earwigs have just eaten these to shreds. I don't want to spray them, but I'm thinking I may have to start spraying. We'll see what happens. But they are producing peppers. To protect my new cucumbers from earwigs, I put them in cups, and that seems to have helped. They are actually starting to grow. And this one over here has a little bit of damage, but it's not too bad. I'll be taking the cover off this when I actually get some time. The cabbages are ready to harvest. The kale is bitter, and this tore and is just not. It's not doing its job anymore. Then I'll find something else I can plant in here. My tomatoes are getting big and tall. Got some Jet Star tomatoes. They're starting to form fruits. We've got another sun sugar tomato right here. My basil's looking good too. It's finally kicked in. Then hiding over here, reaching for the sunlight, we have some ground cherries. They've got fruit getting ready. From what I've heard, though, this is my first year growing ground cherries. What I've heard is these will start to drop on the ground, and that's when they're ripe. They turn yellow, and they taste like pineapple. We have 2 brand new little trees down here. Very difficult to see. This is one of my pistachios. And I'll do a video. I'll link a video where I got these. Here's another little pistachio right there. We'll see how these do. I'm really hoping they like this area and grow and thrive. We've been harvesting cherries. Some of them we can't reach, but the birds are going to be reaching them. And they have been absolutely gorgeous. They're absolutely gorgeous. Look at those. They do have worms, unfortunately. And what I've been doing is I found a pitter, a really nice little Victoria pitter, cherry pitter. And I pit them and then wash the worms out of them, and we've been drying them. So they've been turning out really good. And we harvested probably, I'd say 6 full grocery bags of them, and we still have a ton of cherries. They're absolutely beautiful. Next we have my potatoes that I planted in my compost bin. Those are going to be ready to harvest one of these days. My bee balm is getting ready to bloom. These have just a kind of a light red bloom. They're really pretty. Here we have another set of potatoes that are all flowering. And then some volunteer squash plants down in here. I didn't have room to plant squash, and we get squash bugs really badly. So I didn't plant them, but we do have some in here. They're thinking about flowering, and then maybe once we harvest the potatoes, these will get up to size. We have the lovage. The lovage has gotten really big, and I've used it in some soups. This is my Jupiter grape. It gets a lot of shade, but it's going to get some good size berries on it this year. The cold weather took out a lot of my nectarines and plums, a lot of my nectarines and peaches, but as you can see, we're going to actually get some nectarines. This is my O. Henry peach. We've got a couple of peaches on this one. Got a Santa Rosa plum. Yeah, we've got a Santa Rosa plum, and we're going to get plums off of those. I love those. Here's my little fig on the hill. This is a Chicago hardy fig. And as you can see, it's not dead, but it's not really doing well. See, it's got new growth down in here too. So it keeps struggling, it keeps trying, it just never gets very big. And here's my front yard. This is my favorite time of year for my front yard. We've got all my lilies, we've got orange ones and white ones, and we've got a yellow one that's just about ready to bloom that I'll show you here in just a second. And those contrast so beautifully with my lavender. This is a Munstead lavender. It's going to have to be replaced here, this year. I think this is its last year because it's got a lot of dead in it. Got one of my orange stargazer lilies. This lavender is gorgeous and huge. I've got some Happy Returns daylilies. And this is my beautiful, I don't know exactly what kind of lily it is, but it's different than the other ones. It's huge and it's yellow. And I can't wait until they open up because they smell so good. This whole area has just filled in beautifully. Some more orange stargazer lilies. Now it looks like we will have maybe 3 pawpaws this year. So there's a couple right here. Oh, okay, let's see if we can find more. They're getting big enough that they're easier to see. Here's another one right here. Okay, so there's the 4th one. We'll see if these live. Last year, about half the ones that made it this far lived. If we get big windstorms, they get knocked off. And there might be some more back in here, but I'm going to have to check. So far we have 4, so I'm excited about that. This is my other pawpaw. It's a seedling pawpaw. The one that I just showed you was the Davis. This is just a seedling, and it's supposed to be the pollinator. It'll probably have another year or 2 before it starts flowering, but once this one starts flowering and pollinates my Davis pawpaw, we will get more pawpaws. They do need a pollinator to produce that, very much fruit. Now I do have my purple ruffles basil. These are my edibles that I sneak in the front. This one's going to seed. It's kind of sad, but we have a Swiss chard here. It's a red Swiss chard. We have a white Swiss chard, and I just don't understand. This white Swiss chard is now growing a yellow side shoot. The medlars are forming fruit. Okay, that's what a medlar fruit looks like when it's young. Let's go over and show you the new area in the front. It's starting to look pretty good. As we all know, June is Pride Month, so I'm flying my Pride flag for all of my friends. And here we've got, and I can't remember the name of it. I'll put that up. I'll put that on screen. But this is another hardy hibiscus, and I just love the color. The flower is going to be giant and pink. We've got my nemesis Siberian elm that's trying to sprout all through here. I've got to weed those out. And my irises don't look that great right now, but irises don't generally die. It's kind of, yeah, it's really hard to kill them. So by next year, those will take hold and look really good. The wee one lavenders are looking really good. They're not going to get very big. They'll get about 18 inches to 2 feet tall and wide. And then everything else in here is just doing nicely. One of the next things to bloom will be my black-eyed Susans that are under my blue spruce. We did, this plant is making me sad. This is a replacement for my chase tree. Now I ordered one from an online source, and it came and it was extremely root bound and died before I could plant it. So they did send a replacement very quickly, but it was almost like sending a clone of the other one. It had the exact same trunk pattern. It was just as root bound as the other one, but I broke apart the root ball the best I could and planted it, and we'll see if it survives. It's just not looking really happy. So I may have to go with another source. Got my strawberry Sunday hydrangea here, and I can see little blooms starting, and I will update you when this blooms. Look how exciting that is. I'm really excited to see what this looks like. Got some ground cherries that are not looking very good. We'll see how those do. One more pistachio right here. I don't know how well this will do. This one does get a lot of water from my neighbor's lawn. I'm starting to notice this area gets inundated with water from my neighbor's lawn. Chokeberry's looking good. We're getting some new growth on my black lace elderberry, or my laced up elderberry. My fig might be getting too much water too. It's not happy, but look at the size of the figs on it. I am definitely going to be able to harvest figs this year. The one, there's a little one right here, if you can see it. Now figs produce, from what I raised figs in California, and figs produce two crops. One is the Breba crop, that's on the old wood, and that's the early figs, and they're usually not as good as the second harvest, which looks like this one right here. Now, from what I've heard, in Utah, we do not have a long enough season to harvest the second harvest. You've got to kind of live with the Breba crops. So we'll see how this goes. I'm hoping this fig tree survives the winter. I'm going to do another video on how to protect fig trees. I'm going to figure out a way to protect this so that it can survive here. Then we've got my honeyberry. I had two of them. They do need a pollinator, and the second one died before I could plant it. But the company that I bought it for said that they had a group of honeyberries that did not make it, and the one that they sent me was one of that group, so that they are raising up another one for me that they'll send to me in the fall. Now I may need to find another spot for my lemony lace elderberry because this one is burning up in the full sun. We'll see how well it does, but it is starting to burn up. So that was a quick update tour of what's going on in my garden, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, like and subscribe, share it with your friends. Go out and enjoy your gardens. This summer has been gorgeous, and have a wonderful garden adventure.